Today, I want to talk about three different ways to build financial independence. And the first two ways are more traditional, and the third way is a little bit different. So, today we're going to compare growing financial independence through rental properties versus saving and investments. And the third way is talking about how to build a financial agency. And we're going to talk about the winner is, and I'm going to lay out the facts for you and let you decide for yourself. So, step one is really to figure out how much of a retirement income that you would want to have or passive income, because it doesn't necessarily have to be because you're retired. And so, there are a few different factors that we need to look at and consider when looking at that. So, the first thing is really how much would you want to have coming in to kind of suit your lifestyle and things that you want to do. Are you going to want to start doing that today or the next couple of years, or is this 25 years down the road? Of course, another thing to consider is inflation. And if you're not needing this money for 25 years, things are obviously going to cost more in the future. But for this example, what we're going to look at is creating $3,000 a month in passive income or retirement income, which means you're not having to do anything extra for that money to be coming in on a monthly basis. And so the other thing to keep in mind is really if you're wanting more than $3,000 per month, you have to look at it and say, okay, well, how do I scale this so that if I wanted to be 6,000 a month, 9,000 a month, 12,000 a month, are there ways to take these different methods and scale it to match what I truly want? So let's start by looking at number one, rental properties. And so one thing to keep in mind with this is that if you have a primary residence and then you're going to go borrow money to buy a couple more rental properties, you have to qualify for that. And just to give you an idea, in the city that I live in today, the average house price today is $500,000. So you do have to qualify for that. So right now in our market, the average rental on a house is $1,500 per month. That's what person could charge to rent out that house. So really, to hit that $3,000 a month passive goal that we're looking for, a person would have to have two properties essentially free and clear in order for that money to come in to be passive. So if you have that $500,000 home times two, that means that you need $1 million worth of real estate, and that has to be paid off completely. So the other thing to keep in mind here is that if you're looking at a mortgage on $500,000 today in our market, that's going to be over $2,000 to service that on a monthly basis. And that's before you factor in property taxes and before you factor in any maintenance that has to be done on that property. So this is not something where a person can just say, well, whatever I'm going to charge the renters is going to cover the mortgage, because that's just not the case. There's going to definitely be money coming out of one's pocket in order to do that. So the other thing is once we go, say, 25 years, I mean, obviously people pay a home off over 25 years. Even once that home is paid off, the property tax side of things and the maintenance side of things are still going to always be there, especially if you can only charge a certain amount of rent on a monthly basis. You're not be able to cover, might not be able to cover all those expenses. Okay, so let's say a person went ahead and did that. Now they have all the headaches of taking care of two properties, and they've got 3,000 a month coming in. So then the next step of that is if you're to say, how do I double my income in this scenario? Well, really what you need to do is have two more properties paid off. So we only have so many 25-year time periods in our life. So the reality is you probably need to start all of this at the same time. And so if you wanted your income to be 6,000 a month or 9,000 a month, now the question becomes, how do you qualify for all of that? Because it's one thing to qualify for a mortgage on your primary, and then adding a couple of rentals, and you're probably beyond the max of what you can actually qualify for already. So to go and say you're going to borrow enough money for another four properties, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to do that. The other side of it is today, right now, is that if mortgage rates are at 2% or 3%, that's great because it keeps the payment lower, but we actually have to qualify at a higher rate just for serviceability and really just to keep everybody safe and make sure that people are running into financial trouble. So again, a person probably isn't going to be able to qualify for that much more. And so when you start looking at it, to create a big passive income in rental properties, it's very difficult because a person doesn't have enough equity to put down, to put into these properties, that you start to ask yourself, who is that opportunity really available for? Is it available for the person who is just starting out? Or is it really only available to the wealthy who already have a lot of money that they can be putting down and putting into these properties? Okay, so that's essentially how rental properties work for most people. Second option we're going to look at is saving in investments. And what we talk about here is saving for your FIN number, which stands for your financial independence number. So you may have heard me speak on another video about this, but again, what your FIN number is the amount of money that you need to accumulate between now and whatever age you want to retire. So you'll be completely comfortable in your retirement and be able to essentially pull a passive income off your investments. You're trying to grow your bag of money as big as you can. So eventually what happens is your investments are your ATM. So you can get money anytime you need. So in the scenario that we're talking about, if a person had built up a nest egg of $720,000 of investments, and obviously in retirement, a person's going to be a little bit more conservative. So we're going to say we're getting a 5% rate of return on those investments in retirement, or whenever we want this passive income to start. And that would provide that $3,000 per month that we kind of set as the example that we wanted to generate here. So in order to build that 720,000, that would require, starting today from scratch, person would have to invest $889 per month every month for the next 25 years, based on them being able to get a 7% rate of return while they're saving that. Okay, so for somebody, if they were in a position today where they were only making $3,000 per month, and that was the income they were trying to replace, if they're only making $3,000 a month, what are the chances they can afford to put away $889 per month? It'd be pretty tough, right? But that's what a lot of people face, is that because they don't have that much money after taxes and expenses, that it's very difficult to put away that kind of money. So that kind of leads us to the next item here, is how would you double your income? So obviously in this scenario, you would need another $720,000 invested. Now, of course, again, people would look at it and say, okay, I don't really have a lot of 25-year time frames. So to say, okay, we need another 25-year time frame, that just isn't going to work. So the only real alternative to that is start saving $1,778 per month right now. So for this person, the reality is that that's just not going to happen. And so again, that's the trouble that people face, is because they're trying to save enough to replace their income, but they don't have enough money left over after taxes and all their household expenses to put away that kind of money. So it does make it very difficult to build up what a person truly wants and what they truly need. And it certainly makes it tougher for someone to retire early. A lot of people talk about wanting to retire at age 55. And what we're actually seeing happen in reality is that people are actually working beyond 65 because they don't have enough saved, or they retire at 65, and after a couple of years of retirement, they very quickly realize they didn't have a big enough pool of money, and they actually go back to work, which is very unfortunate. So is it easy to save in this area, to save enough? Actually, no, it's very, very difficult. Okay, some people can do it, but it takes a lot of work and may not be the best option. It might not be viable for the majority of the population. The last one we're going to talk about is building a financial agency, which is the one that might be a little bit foreign to some of you. And this is basically a big part of what I do these days, is help people to become an entrepreneur in the financial industry. So if you've seen any of my prior videos, you've seen we've got a lot of innovative strategies and concepts that can make a huge difference for people and really improving their financial situation and getting to where they want to go. And the reality is the money game, it's not going away anytime soon. People have to deal with this all their lives. and it's actually a growing industry. So I think it's a great place to be, especially with everything that we have going on. So one of the first things that I would ask you from a business perspective, do you think you could find, train, and develop 5 to 7 motivated, business minded self starters like yourself over the course of your business career? Right? I think you'd probably say yes. There's people out there that are looking for great opportunity all the time, especially with everything that's going on in our economy these days. So I want you to think about just one person for now. Okay. So if you had one person that was business minded, if you want to come into our business and just help families, you can make a lot of money. But if you looked at this and says, I'm looking for those people that are business minded. And if you said to that person, listen, you can build a small agency within my company. And let's say that that person's little agency, they were to go out and as a small group, they were to help 5 families a month. Now, what I know from experience is helping the average family generates about 3,000 points of production. I'm not going to dive into that today, how those points work. We can maybe do that in another video. But essentially, how it works for you, if you train and develop that person and you're generating uh, or helping them to generate 15,000 points on a monthly basis, your average override spread, whatever you want to call it, very similar to a real estate agency, that average percentage is 20% for you. That means for every person that you help train and develop them to go out there and build a little tiny company that helps 5 families a month is worth $3,000 a month to you. Okay, so that's just finding one of those people is going to replace that example that we used of $3,000 per month. Okay, it's going to take a little bit of work, but I'm sure you're working hard anyways. So the next question is, how do you double your income? How do you scale this thing? And so based on that, finding 5 to 7 motivated people, I said, okay, let's just plug in 6. So if you could develop 6 of these people and they were all doing that exact same thing, and that's generating $3,000 per month of income for you, that's now $18,000 per month. So we're not talking about actually just doubling the income here, right? And so we look at that and say, is that, a massive amount of work? It's going to take a lot of work, right? But again, you're working hard anyway. So it can be done. And one of the biggest questions then becomes is could this all be done in less than 25 years? Absolutely. There are people who go and do it over the next year. Right? The other side of looking and say you could find and develop one person a year. If you could put yourself in a position 5 to 6 years from now where you add an additional $18,000 per month to your income, where you're generating that passively, is that going to get you to where you want to go? So the next question here is who is this opportunity available to? So some people might look at this and say, okay, is this a financial agency model? Is it a lot like a franchise where it costs $1 million to get in? Absolutely not, because we don't have the huge overhead of those sorts of companies, right? So somebody can get up and running in our business for under $1,000. So all of a sudden, this opportunity becomes available to a lot of people. So that person that doesn't have a huge nest egg yet, that person who's just looking for a shot, somebody who's willing to work hard, just tell me what I got to do and I'll go do it. So we can find a lot of amazing people that aren't going to be limited by what they already have built up. And the awesome thing about this too is that we can start people in our training program to learn how to do all this on a part-time basis. And part-time really means 5 to 10 hours per week. Right? So is this easy? No, I wouldn't say it's easy, but is it easier to be able to go build a business over a period of time than it is, again, like we said, being able to borrow the kind of money that would be required to get into the rental property game? Is it easier than trying to save, $1,000 a month based on a small income today at a regular job? It is easier than those things. And this is really an opportunity too, because of how it's structured. It gives people the ability to also make up for lost time. So if they're already behind the 8 ball and they haven't been saving, how do they catch up? Well, what if they just go build a business over the next 5 years and it's going to pay them, call it $18,000 per month passively? Because now what they've done is they've trained and developed some independent people that are motivated, that are going to continue to do this, whether we're around or not. So that is just scratching the surface, but hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea of who you think is the winner in those three categories. But we could dive into this and we could spend 3 hours talking about all of this. But if this is something that intrigues you, then we need to sit down and have a further conversation, dig into it, get all your questions answered, and just help you see the big picture of how this could work for you.